Hey, everybody. Happy Saturday morning to you. It's the Sundance Film Festival. We're here. Virtually. Yes, this is the second year in a row that the Sundance Film Festival has gone completely virtual. So all of the films are screening on your television virtually. Yes, it's happening. I am excited today because I will be joined by my colleagues at Film Threat for a lively discussion of a bunch, at least the first wave of films playing at the Sundance Film Festival. I've seen at least one of those movies, but I'm excited to be joined by my colleagues to discuss a bunch of the films playing at Sundance and Sundance in general. So let's get started here for Sundance 2022. Here we go. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Gore, joined by Alan Ng, Rob Rector from Film Threat. How you guys doing today? Everything's going well?
Yeah, it's a lot warmer than the last time I was at Sundance.
Yeah.
It's chilly here on the East Coast, Sundance, but yes.
But it's interesting. I watched Bill Maher last night, who, you know, I always find his takes interesting. And he's all about, like, we're done with COVID, everything's over, whatever. I know a lot of other people do not feel that way. I'm in that camp, but I before we actually start talking about movies, I want to get into some topics. I want to actually talk about a bunch of issues related to Sundance. And I know we're going to be joined by some other writers. So let's get into it. And also we're going to be taking your comments and questions. So drop your comments, your questions into the chat. We'll get to you. I want to talk to you. We've got who's here? Who's here talking to us? We have Emmanuel Alexander Cletus. Emmanuel Alexander Cletus. Yes.
Welcome.
Here. Nice. Welcome. Yeah, there's going to be more people joining us. So pop your questions in as we have this discussion. But I have who else is here? Shanatsky. Hey, Shanatsky. Thank you for joining us. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, let's get the chat. Let's heat up the chat, everybody. Ask us questions. We've seen Sundance movies. And the thing about Sundance is, and Alan, you know this, Rob as well, you've been covering it with us for a couple years now. The Sundance movies kind of set the tone for the rest of the year, right? Like you've got movies that play at Sundance, you kind of just hear about at Sundance. And then later in the year, in the fall, they tend to get a small theatrical release. And often these movies are the movies that get nominated for awards. So these are the films that are incredibly influential. What are your thoughts on that? You get to see these movies before they're tainted by the marketing and the trailers that just give everything away, right? I'm going to go through some of these chats here. Alan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think the virtual aspect of it has kind of toned that down because, you know, I think even this year, I don't think there's a lot of big studio films that are at Sundance like there were the previous years. Last year was the same thing. It was mostly the smaller independents, the truly independent films that played at Sundance, while the studios just kind of held back on their gold, so to speak, and they waited later down the year before releasing those. Because, you know, I think Power of the Dog was Toronto. You know, maybe they're all saving it for Toronto at the moment.
And I also think that to a certain extent, most people don't give a crap about this inside baseball stuff. It's like these are movies shown at festivals to festival audiences that adore all of the movies, regardless of quality. And then they get released, you know, in limited release to theaters. And then people are like, what was all the hype? At least that happens for me sometimes. I'm like, sometimes, you know, they say it's the mountain air. When you're actually in Park City, the mountain air, and you're in that environment. And also, I actually think not having seen a trailer, if you do not see a trailer for a movie, I actually think that actually helps the experience. We're also joined by Norman Gidney of HorrorBuzz.
Hey, you guys.
You're part of our team every year. Love it. Love you, Norman.
Every year. I thought we were going to be meeting out at the pool.
No, I'm over
We're
at
in line.
The Echoes here.
Yeah, I'm in line at the Egyptian right now.
See, yeah, I was about to go over to the Egyptian, and then I was like, no,
I'll take your spot.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, so here we are.
Shanatsky says the only festival I ever hear about still is Cannes. Well, yeah, the
Yep.
Cannes Film Festival is the one. I mean, you've got your, the beaches, and at least for now, topless beaches still. I've gone topless at the beach there. No one seemed to care. But it's no, Sundance is. I mean, Sundance became the Sundance Film Festival in 1989 when it was renamed the Sundance Film Festival. Previously, it was the United States Film Festival. Some people know that. I'm sure it's in the Wikipedia somewhere. But it was Robert Redford's folly. He loved these little small regional movies, and he wanted to kind of say, hey, just wait a second, maybe I can hook you up with some Hollywood screenwriters and get some advice. And his whole thing was to create a nurturing environment for independent filmmakers who were blowing their money and making sort of middling movies. And it's now become this environment now that really fosters like some of the incredible independent voices that end up going on to have like amazing careers. Everyone from, Kevin Smith, Christopher Nolan. I mean, you could go on and on and on. Yeah. So many filmmakers. Quentin Tarantino, he workshopped Reservoir Dogs. If you look on one of the DVDs of Reservoir Dogs, there's a little behind the scenes where you see him at the Sundance Institute directing Steve Buscemi in scenes from Reservoir Dogs. He developed it there. So anyways, little known stuff, but I want to get into a topic, and I want to ask everybody this question. This is the second year that the Sundance Film Festival has gone completely virtual. We're in virtual land, right? Like, and I think that really deprives a lot from the filmmakers. The experience of seeing your movie with a live audience and the energy from that, it really helps you see if you were successful in what you were trying to achieve creatively. And then also, in the cases of a lot of filmmakers, I know a lot of films change after having screened at Sundance or film festivals. They change a little bit, right? So it's an opportunity. But Sundance has always taken place during flu season, which will also in future be also known as COVID season. Right? Flu season is COVID season. Look, people are going to get sick during the winter. This is normal. It's normal to get sick during the winter months. So should Sundance move the festival to spring, summer to avoid flu season?
Well, I mean, there's a communal aspect to any film festival, as we all know. We've all attended them. So that there is this, community that's being built. And continues, and you see old friends and familiar faces, but now I think that it carries with it, like when someone sneezes in the theater, that all of a sudden everyone kind of ducks for cover, that it's it's a little bit weightier of an issue now. So it might not be a bad thing. I mean, it might be a bad thing for Sundance, which is known for its snow-topped mountains. But Park City is beautiful in the summer too. So there's nothing wrong with highlighting it in that time.
Rob, I completely agree with you. I've actually been to Park City, Utah in the summer. It's stunning.
It's beautiful.
It's like everywhere you look, it's a postcard. It's like, it's so incredible, and hiking, and there's all sorts of outdoor activities. I mean, originally the Sundance Film Festival was set in January to try to get studio executives from the major studios to come to Park City because they could go skiing, and then they might go see a movie or two at the festival. Right. Seriously, that's why they said it in January. It's like, oh shoot, we'll make it it's a vacation festival, and we're going to screen these movies in like libraries and high school auditoriums, and we'll get like, hopefully, fingers crossed, the studio executives will go see some independent films, and maybe they'll buy one, right? What are your thoughts, Norm, on moving Sundance? Should Sundance move to spring and summer, avoid flu season, and then we're not going to be canceling Sundance? This is the second year in a row it's been canceled.
I think I don't care when it happens, as long as it happens. And if that means avoiding flu season, okay. I mean, like, I don't understand that there's really no downside to moving it, because as far as I'm concerned, because like you said, Park City is just as beautiful in the summer as it is in the winter, and it might give execs more lead time to pick something up and get it ready for I don't know, the coming year. I don't know.
Well, it changes the calendar, right? Because the thing is that Sundance and Slamdance, I would argue, kick off the festival season, right? It kicks it off. It's like Sundance kind of sets the tone for the rest of the year. So festival programmers and go to Sundance, and then they go there looking for movies to put into their festivals, whether it's South by Southwest, Tribeca, etc., like smaller festivals, smaller regional festivals. Look for movies like, oh, we want to have this play in our festival in June. So it sort of sets the tone. It's like a backdoor market, not just for distributors, but also for festival programmers. Alan, you've been braving Sundance for the last several years, and you were there in I think you have a pretty funny
before
story.
the pandemic broke.
In
Yes,
2020, were you getting looks from people? When you were there?
I swear, I was at the Eccles and just kind of get into my seat, and I heard a guy on his cell phone talking about this thing called the coronavirus. And he was very loud about it, and then when he saw me, he got really quiet. And, I'm surmise what you will. No judgment here, but that just struck me. It's like, wow, okay. I think the placement of Sundance in January has a little bit to do with the fact that it's award season. Celebrities are already on the West Coast. Maybe that this is a draw. Also taking advantage of the skiing, but the thing about attending Sundance compared to every other festival I go to is all this prep I have to do to prepare for the snow and the cold. And the first few days, it's just fighting not getting sick and taking copious amounts of drugs and antihistamines to stay with it. And that was definitely my experience going to Sundance.
It's definitely an endurance race. That's for sure.
Well, you have to do emergency. I always take a lot of vitamins, zinc, vitamin D you almost don't need, because what they don't tell you is when you're out, the sun is so blazing, no matter how cold it is, you're warm during the day. Yeah, you actually do need sunscreen, but which actually is I love it. There's something about, I feel like I get a high from the mountain air, because the air I'm in Pasadena, and the air on the West Coast is not so great. It's dirty. It doesn't rain very often. You go into Park City and it's like, I feel it's invigorating. There's something about it that maybe that, I don't know, contributes to also the movie.
My first experience at Sundance, the first thing I did was I went to I forget, it's the high school. You stand in line for an hour. You're
there right now, in fact.
Yeah, and then when I got in, I realized I'm not seeing a movie. I'm seeing a 4-part documentary. So I'm sitting there for 4 hours, and it was the most miserable experience I had. That was my first experience at Sundance. I finally figured it out though, but man, damn, 4 hours.
Wing It Production says Echinacea 2, very good advice. Yes. And I second this one.
Scotch.
Oh, and Scotch. I mean, it is like an endurance test, because you're going from like screening, party, and then there's no time. It's not that there's no time to eat. You either got to get something on the fly, or you're eating whatever they have at the parties. At the parties, I always say just go for protein. Don't go for just the chicken skewers. Bunch of chicken skewers. You got your protein. You can continue drinking. But I do think there's something to this. I feel really disappointed and sad for the filmmakers who have been deprived of this experience of seeing their movie in front of a Sundance audience. The Sundance audiences are trained. They love anything that's different, unusual, like, takes a risk, is also an emerging or new filmmakers. Like, just, I love that. I love that there's a palpable energy. I remember I told you, Norm, before you went your first Sundance, I said to you, Sundance, it's going to change your life. And what happened?
It did.
Yeah,
it did. It did. Incidentally, circling back, not to derail, but the Scotch, my deal is no drinking while reviewing, and I will no, and elderberry syrup. That stuff is bomb for immunity. However, I did spend one day with a bottle of Jack Daniels and knocked out 4 reviews. But then I sobered up and I got.
That's what microdosing is for.
Yeah, exactly. You get it. So anyway, sorry.
Well, I mean, look, I think it would change the calendar, but look at, we've had the Critics' Choice Awards. Alan and I are members of the CCA. We vote in the Critics' Choice Awards. The Critics' Choice Awards does kind of set the tone and is very predictive of the Oscar nominations. If you look at the Oscar nominations the last several years, along with the Critics' Choice Awards nominations, they very much line up, even predicting the winners in many cases. So, and all these things kind of progress. It was like the CCA, Critics' Choice Awards, the Golden Globes, Sundance, all kind of took place in 1 month, kind of setting the tone. And then, 60 days later or so, the Oscars. This would disrupt the entire calendar, but, at a time where everything's been disrupted, right? Yeah. Like the world has been disrupted. Maybe we need to disrupt in a positive way where, look, in the spring and summer, the flu season subsides, flu/COVID season. It's never going away, folks. We're just going to have to live with it. That season subsides. Maybe Sundance should move it. I want to know what you think in the chat. Whether you're watching this live now or whether you're watching this later, please, what are your thoughts? Tell us. What do you think? Should Sundance move to spring, summer to avoid flu season? I think that I suggested this on Twitter, and Dan Mervish from Slamdance is like, yeah, it makes total sense. And Slamdance, actually, they've been doing events in other cities. They did an event in Joshua Tree. They did an event so they do these screening series, sort of mini festivals. And I think they've been very smart about that. But I'd really like to know what everyone else thinks. Post, please, in the chat on this topic. I want to know. I really think there's only upsides, but it is disruptive to people's norms. But what's the norm these days? We live in clown world, right? I mean, whatever.
I think the issue. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say the issue to me is, I think there should be a film festival in January. Maybe we don't have it in Park City. Maybe we have it in a better location that isn't going to get people sick. That's somewhat safer. LA, San Diego. I don't know, but
they're never going to leave Park City.
How about Vegas?
All of these festivals that have been kind of hit hard by this, the smaller festivals, not the Sundance, but wouldn't it be a great opportunity to collaborate with some of these smaller ones and say, hey, let's do a traveling Sundance where it goes to some of these smaller festivals, showing the films, building up that anticipation, giving that kind of exclusivity of going to these little towns across America and kind of, building up that anticipation from a very grassroots perspective. I mean, it might be a way, and that could help these little guys out too.
Yeah. So let's see. Forgotten says I've never been, but I think moving it to March wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, just moving it in general. Phil G says April. Why not? I mean,
when is South by? South by is May, or
someone says why not both? Review sober, then review drunk. I think that. Or you can do, I mean, I don't know, but I do actually like the someone says leave it, Terrius says leave it where it is, tradition. Damn it. I agree with you, but the problem is that I think that we're always going to see these new variants, right? There's a lot of new ones. They're all pre-named, right? So I don't know. I'm all for tradition, but also living in reality. I used to get flu every time. I would get sick. You go to Sundance and it's like 10 days and you're just exhausted. You come back and it would take me 2 weeks to recover. I mean, seriously, I'm not like we're finally, I mean, I get the flu shot every year because I just didn't want to get sick going to Sundance. And I almost think it's a good idea, regardless of when all these mandate mask stuff, I may still, at least when it comes to Sundance, wear a mask on a plane just because I feel like that's where I would always get sick. I'm
never giving up the masks ever.
Well, I think it's I think it's personal choice.
Yeah.
I'm actually comfortable not wearing a mask, but the thing is, it's personal choice. I mean, and also I think Wing It Production says confined spaces spreads flu. Tradition is normal. Yeah, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is going on a plane and coming back from Sundance, it might be good to wear a mask during then because everybody on the plane is already sick for the most part. I mean, I got I got so sick once, I had pneumonia where I was coughing up mucus that was like chewing gum. That's how bad it was. I mean, it was that. No, I'm serious. And,
No,
and
I've been
as,
there. Yeah.
this was in the early 2000s, and my doctor says I have 80% lung capacity as a result. So,
Ugh.
I mean, everybody talks about it, right? I mean, when it comes to conventions, comic conventions, they call it con crud, right? That's what they call it, con crud. So I don't know. I think moving it, yeah, and D says moving it to warmer weather makes sense. I don't know. I just think moving it in general might benefit the filmmakers and actually get us back to consistency. It's again, we've all had to come up with new habits. Maybe this is a new habit that would actually be useful. Now, I want to move on.
Move it to Vegas. Move it to Vegas.
All right, move it to Vegas. Okay. Moving on to our next topic. Before we go to our next topic, I want to say, hey, support us and buy something. Film Threat. Here, you can get this. I'm wearing it in honor of Norm. This is my pink Film Threat logo.
Oh,
It's maybe a little familiar. Go to shop.filmthreat.com. You can pick up a Film Threat t-shirt like I'm wearing here. You can get yourself a Film Threat mug, which features our current logo and the classic logo from 1985. 1985 is when Film Threat was founded. So
is that when it was published on a Ditto machine, or
no, it was a Xerox machine, a Ditto machine.
Ditto
printer. You're going Image Writer, baby, Image Writer all the way. So shop.filmthreat.com, check it out. All sorts of stuff. We have jackets, t-shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. All kinds of good stuff. We've got some more comments here. Let's get through some of these comments. What are some Wing It Productions? Planes are Petri dishes. Wing It, I agree with you. That's why I'm thinking
100%.
like going forward, depending on the season, probably not all the time, but depending on the season, I will more than likely continue to wear a mask on a plane. Maybe not the whole time, but at least make it optional, right? Like, unless you're still entertained by all these videos of people having freakouts on the planes. I'm just sort of whatever. And Wing It says, Boss merch. Hey, buy some of that Boss merch. Love Absolutely. It. Cool. I want to move on to our next topic here. Our next topic, and I'm excited that you are all going to participate in this subject. And here it is. Sundance Film Festival 2022. Is Sundance too woke? Now, before we get into this, let me just say I've been going to Sundance since the 90s. I think 96, 97 was the first time I went. We've been covering Film Threat Film Threat has been covering Sundance since the early 90s when it became an important film festival, right? When it changed its name to Sundance in 1989. And in my opinion, having attended that long, Sundance has always been woke. It's always been, and woke is actually a term that's been co-opted. My friend Dante James, who is a writer for Film Threat, who happens to be Black, said that is a Black term, and it meant be woke, like be aware of cops and be on your guard so nothing happens to you. But it was co-opted by white liberals. Seriously, this is what Dante always gives me the speech about that term woke. He doesn't like it. But Sundance has always supported, emerging filmmakers, films that could be considered indie films that tackle topics that could be also considered woke, right? And that's fine. These are small indie movies. But what's happened of late as Sundance, now I'm seeing normal people kind of look at Sundance and go, is this festival's just super woke? And I'm going to present an example here. I have to share my screen here. I'm going to share. I gotta share my. It's going to get weird, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna share. Talk about this while I bring up some. Alan, talk about this while I bring up. I got to bring up a thing.
Yeah, well, it's the. I'm not sure if you're going to talk about it, but the land acknowledgements. That's been going on for several years, but this year the land acknowledgement video. Man, it's like a sledgehammer to the head, and I feel bad for you white people, you colonizers, this
is easily the longest. I have to chime in here because I was the first time I sat through it and watched it because respect, but it was like, man, this is the longest land acknowledgement.
Now, wait a second. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't even know what a land acknowledgement is, this started at, I think it started like at Toronto and some other festivals, and it's definitely really leaning into white guilt, right? Like, which is, I mean, look, it's a thing, right? And so whatever, but it's so heavy-handed now. And also,
Oh my God.
could you, first of all, Alan, could you explain what a land acknowledgement is? Because some people don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's essentially because Park City, where it's located on what used to be basically the land of the indigenous people, Native Americans, which is, I struggle with what term am I supposed to be using here? But Park City used to be on the land of Native Americans, and so they wanted to acknowledge the fact that white people came in, took it over, and pushed out Native Americans into reservations. And so this is kind of, I think you talk about appeasing white guilt. Okay, I'm fine with that. It's just this year, they've now added the environmental message to it. It's not only are we acknowledging the land, but now we're talking about how we are destroying the environment. And we can argue about that, but the point is now gotten to be a message. I think it's the term was support indigenous resistance. That's some of the phrases being thrown around in this opening film. And again, it's just a sledgehammer to the head. It's so heavy-handed that it's just like, who they're speaking to. I mean,
Alan, can you get the video and actually put it like in here when you cut this?
I don't know if they make it available, but
well, no, what I'm saying is
start up any feature. I think it's just a start of any feature on there.
Yeah. Anytime you start watching a Sundance film, that's the first thing that comes up this video.
The thing that's weird about it, I mean, is that it feels like creepy religious. It feels like a weird, almost religious ceremonial kind of thing that we must do this. And whenever something gets a little too religious-y for me, I always think of Beneath the Planet of the Apes and the cult of the humans that lived underneath the Earth's surface and worshipped the giant nuclear missile that could destroy the entire planet. And they actually have like this choir, and they say, they're basically praising their god, which is the nuclear missile. It's like religious fervor that's gone too far. I think there are aspects of COVID culture that have actually even gone in that direction, where it almost has a religious sensibility. And that's the thing about the acknowledgements. Also, do the acknowledgements make sense? It makes sense if you're on the land.
Mm-hmm.
This is a virtual film festival. You're not on the land. There's no land.
That was already made.
Yeah, but they already, because it was going to be live.
Yeah,
they already had the video.
They had the video done. So you're in Anaheim, California.
They did it last year when it was virtual.
Did they do it last year too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do it every year.
Yeah.
Okay. It just seems weird. It's a virtual film festival. Who knows where people are watching this? They could be watching it in some other country. I mean, look, we're never going to not have, guilt about like where I just like, I don't know where this cycle ends. Like, where does it end? Like,
that's my point. It's one thing this is my problem with the woke movement in general. All it does is it points out a problem, but it never says, okay, now that we point out the problem, here's what we would like. Here are our demands, so to speak. And so this video just says, you white people, you're bad people. I love the fact that I'm not in this group. That you people are so bad that I need to call it out constantly, like a nagging parent. And but there's okay, you called it out. What are we supposed to do? What would we need to do to appease things? And I have no clue.
Well, the thing is, I think it's to make white people feel better. It's just to make white people like, look, I helped, I did something, and I don't know. I just, having been around Sundance, like I've seen those people that are like super extreme, and I'm all about like, hey, you do you do whatever, cool. Like I love I have made friends at Sundance with so many people I would never have met otherwise. And I love the energy and environment. It's such a, and Sundance was way diverse before that word was something that was in the mainstream, right? They were all about it. And I kind of feel like they've gone so extreme where it's now become like, it's become almost comical. Like, you know, it's always better when someone not white like me says it. So thank you, Alan. Please speak on that topic. But I'll show you another thing, and maybe Norm will have some thoughts on this. I need to share screen, which is probably going to be a little embarrassing for me. I need to share my my entire screen. My entire screen, yes. Share, and I need to show you.
Do you need me to teach you how to share things? Or?
Can you see this?
No.
No, you can't see this. Oh, I'm trying to share.
No.
I'm trying
Have
to
you
share.
not done this before?
Yeah, not. No, I'm
Did
trying
you hit
to
the share button on the bottom and then select the window?
We're gonna talk me through this.
Yeah, and
we're
then
gonna talk.
Okay. Here, let's
Film Direct Tech Support here. How can we help you?
There we go.
There we go.
Can you see that?
No.
Nope.
Oh wait, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong thing. There we go.
No, this is weird. I think there's a problem with StreamYard here. I mean, are you truly sharing something? Did you hit that share button?
I'm sharing something.
And then you connected it to whatever device you want to share?
It says it's lost the permission to share. I've got to go to Google Chrome. Hey, why don't you answer some questions in the chat?
Shinatsky says there's too much money in the problem. There is so much money in the problem. I think you're on to something there without getting overly political. There's money. Black Lives Matter raised a lot of money last year, 2 years ago. Let's see. Once you solve a problem, then you can't keep going on about it. That's true. Can you imagine what would happen if we solved the problem? If we solved racism? If we solved, yeah. Okay, and then Ataria says, "Switch it on and off again." Just reboot. Or
is she talking? Are they talking about the woke issue, or are they talking?
No, we're talking about screen sharing problem.
I will say, as far as circling back on the land acknowledgement and the woke, and like this year, it went from showing an acknowledgement and gratitude to activism.
Mm-hmm.
It went from this land belonged to these people to get involved and help us fight, and it was like, what is this?
It became about the environment.
Honestly, I don't want to be recruited into an agenda. I mean, seriously, I don't want to be recruited. I want to the best independent films are the movies that actually maybe have some kind of message. It's woven into the story and the characters. It's actually not a part of. It's not just sort of on the surface, like where the agenda trumps story and character. The agenda is put ahead of that. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, Sundance alum, has discussed this ad nauseum, that the agenda is now front and center, and now it's activism. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to recruit me into your agenda. Like, that's not what I signed up for. And it's the worst way to sway hearts and minds. If anything, there could be pushback from that. So, Alan, I just texted you what I wanted to share, and maybe you can share it. In particular, I would like Norm's opinion on what I just texted you. If you could throw that up on the screen. I'm sorry, but it's really important to what we're talking about now. And that is the thing that has shifted. Now it's not just about like, let's feature marginalized filmmakers. Let's feature gay filmmakers. I'm all about that. Like, I love discovering new voices that have a different perspective and point of view. I love that. I want to see the world through someone else's eyes and how they see it as a way to learn something from that. But I don't want you to tell me how to think. People, as it turns out, don't like to be told how to think, or at least I don't. I feel like most people don't. Now, can we have a discussion? Let's have a discussion. I want to hear, I mean, and in most cases, I really actually enjoy not necessarily debating, but at least discussing ideas where like I can have my mind changed about something. Great. Let's have that discussion with respect. But just straight up activism, I think, is just not the way to go. Rob, you were about to say.
I was going to
say, short film. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say, I think that's one of the best aspects of a film festival, quite honestly, is the discussions that take place, the question and answers that take place with those who created the film and who have that, you know, inherent message baked in, that they can discuss it and say, hey, this is what it was about. And it allows for a back and forth. It allows for a rhetorical kind of, you know, setting for the films that we all just witnessed collectively. And then we all, as we all know, art comes, you know, there's so many different interpretations of art. So when we have those discussions afterwards and we meet the people who are involved and we hear the stories that went into making these films, that's, to me, the foundation of what makes festivals so unique and so great. And having it just kind of pre-formatted in this way prior to takes away that kind of natural discussion that should take place.
It should be organic, and it should come with some, at the very least, understanding and respect. And I feel like I've for the most part gotten that at Sundance. Now, this is the form when you sign up as a journalist to attend Sundance. You're told you must fill out this form. And I was told to ask like members of my team. And honestly, like Film Threat is I should actually say this in advance. Film Threat is an apolitical, we're politically agnostic, right? Which means my goal with Film Threat is to be is true diversity, which is diversity of opinions. I'd like to hear all opinions from all sides, all represented. And when we have certain types of films come in, we have a horror movie. Hey, Bobby Lapierre loves trashy, low-budget horror like Full Moon or Trauma. Norman Gidney, and only because I got to know Norm, and he's very open about this, happens to be gay. We get we have a film, gay cinema, that comes in. Norm, for the most part, tends to review that. We have a woman who's a New York feminist who writes for us. When we get a type of film in, we try to assign movies to those kind of predisposed to kind of already be kind of in that world. We are politically agnostic. I don't know why other entertainment media outlets are not like this. Why is it that it seems all entertainment media outlets seem to be on one side of the equation? Film Threat, and I have tried to remain this for years. We'll cover documentaries like The Boys in Red Hats, which is some might consider a conservative or right-wing documentary. We'll cover documentaries from the left. I don't care. Is it something that will move you, that will do what is it unbiased? I find that there are very few unbiased documentaries now. Documentaries today are just propaganda for the most part. For the most part, most documentaries you see these days are on one side of the issue or the other. But this form is something they make you fill out. Now, I always prefer not to answer because, and I think it's weird, like if someone starts writing for Film Threat, my first question is not going to be, say, to a new...
what's your sexual preference? What's your
sexual preference? Why would I ask someone that? I feel like that's very personal. Or what do you identify as? It's not the first thing on the top of my mind. The first thing on the top of my mind is, do you have a passion and a love for movies? Let me read some samples of your work. Now, if I start to read someone's work, I can usually get a sense of kind of who they are as a person or kind of where they stand. And that's great. I love to be in the head of someone else and kind of see where they stand. But I'm getting a little annoyed at this because not just Sundance is doing this. Every film festival is doing this now.
Two things. In the 80s, if you had asked someone what their sexual preference was in getting a job, do you know how much trouble you have gotten yourself into? And then the second thing, this form is not a form that the writers, the press, individual press members fill out. This is what I had to fill out for every single member of our team going to Sundance. So I had to disclose the sexual orientation and ethnicity of all the members of my team going out. And that's that, you know, to me, that's,
You got mine wrong, by the way.
oh yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, to force employers then to have to go out and find out this personal information that has nothing to do with their job and then report it to Sundance, that there are big problems with that.
Well, Norm, I want to hear what you have to say, because you're very open about that you are gay. I even happen to know, and you know, disclose it if you want. I know your Grindr username, and it's Chef's Kiss. Probably the best Grindr new username I've ever heard.
Mary Toppins.
Mary Toppins.
Okay. Okay, and you know, to be clear, you didn't have to ask me if I was gay or not, because we were in a gay bar. No, I'm kidding.
I don't care. I'll go to a gay bar. I don't give a shit.
Those are the heaviest scores. I'm telling you right now. Okay, so as far as this form goes, okay, so I'm gay. Who cares? Who cares? That doesn't define my character. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define my ability to assess a piece of work, you know, and let you know how it affects me. So yes, I have insight into a community, you know, but that's it. So yeah, I honestly do think that these particular questions cross a line. They're a little invasive, and it I don't know, you know, I mean, I know that they're trying to be as inclusive as possible, but yeah, like the first time I filled out this form for myself, I was like, are they going to ask me if I like otters or bears or twinks next? Like, you know, like, I don't know. So I don't understand how my orientation has anything to do with my ability to review a film or report on it.
Well, I always look at these sort of initiatives as it just means inclusivity means the opposite of it, which is just fewer white people. I mean, that's just, I mean, you know, there's an article, you can look this up, called Hollywood's New Rules, that was on Barry Weiss's Substack. And she talks about where finally people in the industry are starting to say, which is, I feel like it's an overcorrection. Obviously, like there needed to be changes. No one disagrees with that, but now it's been an overcorrection. And my whole thing has always been like, hey, and even like Brie Larson called it out in the most awkward, horrible way. I always thought like, yeah, more chairs at the table, but it didn't mean taking chairs away. Now it's fine. I'm willing to say, look, I would rather someone else from my team, from Film Thread, experience Sundance. I've been going to it for years. Fine. I won't go this year. No problem. You know, it's not a big deal to me, but this kind of thing, which now every film festival seems to require this, Tribeca, whatever, they're all asking this. It's a swing in the wrong direction that I don't think is entirely appropriate. And people think they're doing a good thing by it. And I actually think it's going to have an unintended negative result. I want to see, we're going to continue this discussion, but, and we haven't even started reviewing movies yet. I told you guys this could go a couple hours, and we're
okay. Well, I've got a screening at 10:45 PST.
Okay, well, we'll get to you. We'll get to you that, but I want to get to people in the chat and hear what people in the chat are saying. Alan, can you highlight some of these, and we'll talk about it. Here we go. We got Shinatsky.
People in Hollywood, to put it simply, don't live in the real world. They live in a small community with lots of money that is nothing like everyone else's life. I agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, especially with the messaging about COVID, you know, it seems like there's Hollywood and LA and how they're handling it, and then there's the rest of the state and how we're handling it. But again, yeah, there's this echo chamber of Hollywood that's going on.
Yeah, let's get. I'm gonna go through these real quick. Charlie Stevenson says Sundance is an event created to make your work event / ski vacation a tax write-off. Charlie, you are correct. That is exactly right. Shanatsky says, I'm not even reading these before I'm putting them up. So
You might want to, actually.
Shanatsky, ask feminism
I like
about
you peeking, Norm.
ask feminism about solving problems. 60 plus years of activism and women are oppressed worse according to them. Shanatsky is being very they've turned white males into a marginalized group while not helping the groups they claim to champion. That could be true. That could absolutely be true.
Although you white guys have had a pretty good run.
We've had a pretty good run. But the thing is this, if you look back, people act like there's never been diversity before the year 2020. Look back to movies in the 70s. Look back to movies in the 70s, right? The first Alien movie, 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, right? Like you had Pet Kodo in that. You had a strong female lead, but you didn't really need to call it out, who literally saved Jonesy the cat, the whole concept of save the cat, which is a screenwriting thing. Shanatsky says, I personally think this all is to keep the people at the top from being replaced, because the people at the top are still the people in the real power positions calling the shots, not diverse at all, by the way, because minorities can't get ahead and they already screwed. And now they made it so any white youth can't get anywhere, which is freaking weird. D. Martin, the point of giving out this information is, I think the point of giving out this information is, exactly. All that Disney has done is destroyed any possible artistic autonomy that a creator could have. It's all corporate filmmaking now, folks. It's all factory filmmaking. The money people will look at creator-led and see the woke films failing. We better stop that. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, we have an article about that in Film Threat.
Exactly.
I just wish we knew how
by the way,
felt.
we have a.
Well, yeah, I'll bring in Sabina in a minute here. Okay. Frank the Bunny 666 says Ryan Cannell is my source for gay cinema. Sorry. Shout out to Ryan Cannell, RK Outpost. He has a great YouTube channel, just past 100,000 subs. So shout out to him. Shanatsky also says, because the people that own them have those views and are using them to further them. Wow, we had a lot of comments here. Shanatsky again, it's called consolidation. It's called consolidation. You take over everything slowly and make it so there's no voice that can challenge you. I do think it's really unusual. Like, I'll get invited to the Latino house, right? Whenever I go to stuff like that, first of all, it's free drinks, and I'll go there, and I love it. I'm usually the only white guy there, but it's really about that group sort of cheering for their own team, which is a great thing. I just think that this is what I've always loved about independent film. Independent film, nobody cares. Nobody cares where you came from. Nobody cares your sexual orientation, your ethnicity. No one cares. Did you make a film that I identified with, that moved me, that I could put myself in someone else's head and actually have an experience that makes me look at things differently, right? I think that there's value in that. So I want to thank the chat for that. We're going to and look at this. Ryan Cannell is here. Hail Film Threat. Ryan, congrats on 100K subs. You were great last night on FNT. Fantastic show as usual. Thanks a lot. Yes, Ripley was a cat lady. Jonesy, of course. Yeah. But look, I want to wrap this up. I want to bring in one of our other writers, Sabina. Hey, Sabina, join the conversation here. How are you doing? All right.
Hey. Here we are.
But
so we want to hear your thoughts now.
Well, no, I would definitely want to get your thoughts, but what are your thoughts on, like, has Sundance gone too woke? We talked about, like, this form we have to all fill out. We talked about the land acknowledgements that don't make sense for a virtual film festival because who knows where you are. Like, has it gone, like, now it's gone from what this used to be, this, like, we're gonna build up support and we're going to champion, emerging voices, to now get with the sort of almost religious fervor of what Sundance has become with these land acknowledgements. And now I have to fill out a form and actually ask what the sexual orientation or how people identify who are writers that write for us. And I feel a little awkward. I actually, Sabina, you have mentioned things about your personal life, but I would feel weird asking you, what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, female, woman, I think what I've noticed with this year's Sundance and attending for many, many years, the highlight of the Weinstein era, where it's all Hollywood, where it's money, 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 where it's get me into a party. And now, 2 years in the pandemic, you can obviously see it was tough to make movies. It's sparser film. There's a lot more audio than there is head interviews and in-person interviews. And I think that the Sundance is kind of cleaning up, mopping up what happened with all these movements and trying to put them in a place that we can all actually understand and relate to, instead of this like throwing this stuff at us and like, oh my God, whose side am I on? Am I this person? What's my identity? What do I do? How do I get involved? And where's my money coming from now? Like I got a grant for this, a grant for that, but I don't relate to any of this. I'm just a person who loves making movies. And I think that the artistic ability of what people are trying to do in the film world is being shrouded with, do you know your place? And that's just my first thought. And it shows in all these films. Do you have a Latino actor? Do you have an African American? Do you have someone who represents the islands? Do you actually know the land that you're on? Which is an interesting thing, because I think that this has been something in the process about the place you are and identifying with, this is not your land. It belongs to Mother Earth. It belongs to something celestial. I don't know. But it is interesting how they're making a movement part of their platform, which I don't know. It kind of bothers me a little bit.
Well, does it bother you that activism is now, it's not just about like, hey, let's build up emerging voices, marginalized groups, whatever. Now there's full on activism. And by the way, I did my best to stack people in the hierarchy. White guys at the bottom. We have our
other white guy.
Asian POC, I don't remember. Wait, gay
I
Trump,
know. I wonder if
gay Trump's Asian. I'm sorry, Alan. You've been. Norm is on top. Mary Toppins.
No,
Mary
I get on that.
The thing that bothers me most about woke stuff, I'll just say, is that there's no freaking sense of humor. Like we can't even talk about it with a sense of humor. And I can't not have a sense of. I grew up. Look, I'm Irish. My household, the way the way we handled family fights was who made the best jokes, right? We would goof on each other. If you took yourself too seriously, you're not going to survive in my family. You're just not going to survive in my family, right? Not at all.
Half Jewish, I totally get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Jews have a good sense of humor. How do you handle adversity? For me, best way to handle any type of adversity is a sense of humor about yourself. And I'm really proud to work with everyone here at Film Threat. I know that hopefully more of our writers will be joining us for this conversation. Sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take the work seriously. And I know that we do that at Film Threat. We'll be getting to more of your comments. Let's wrap up this conversation about, has Sundance gone too woke? Any final thoughts from anybody to wrap it up? Anybody who's not white. White people, shut the fuck up.
I'm going to shut up. I'm going
to shut up. Because I'm supposed to shut up.
No, I have a name.
I'm wondering, having attended the festival, one of the things that I did enjoy about Sundance is that it did recognize minorities and people who were not known to many or the mainstream. And I remember so many times walking to films or walking up Main Street, and there were little protests here and there. And I do miss that interaction. And it seems to have, I think to your point, Chris, I think it's lost its direction virtually. I think that it has more power and more interest done live. And I think that Sundance is trying to keep that going, and they're maybe relying on it too much. So
yeah, it's to the point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Typical man talking over a woman. I did that thing.
Mansplaining.
Buddy, you should have a button that you can just mute me. But I do. Well, I wish you'd joined us for our earlier discussion. We talked about, should Sundance move from flu season, the winter, and move to the spring or summer? Maybe like, April, May. It's beautiful. Park City is a freaking postcard.
I live out here in the mountains. I mean, it is,
gorgeous.
Yeah, and it would be fun because more people would attend because they would be financially able to do it.
Right.
Park City is not cheap in any stretch. And that would make it a more interesting event. And they could do a lot more too. So I agree with that. I thought about that a lot. But I'll tell you, this time around with Sundance in person, I'm missing it more than ever. Especially, I'm done. I want this over because I miss this. Like, I want to talk to people all day long, and there's no one around.
Right.
Well, you and Bill Maher are on the same page. I watched his show Real Time last night, and he was just like, "We're done. We're done." Barry Weiss was on there. She's like, "I'm done. We're done." I mean, look, I can go to AMC Burbank. I get a popcorn and sit in my seat the entire time, and I can slowly munch on it with no mask, right? Like, yeah. I also just believe in personal accountability and responsibility. You make the choices for you. Totally. And I think that goes, look, as someone who will judge quietly, I look at people's fashion choices. I will judge. Feel free to judge me for not wearing a mask. It's fine. I don't wear a mask outdoors, yet half the people I see in Pasadena, California are still wearing masks outdoors. I will say at night when it's actually very cold in Pasadena, maybe a mask makes sense. Or when it was very dusty during our windstorm. But you know what? Make your own choices for yourself. Do what makes sense to you. And that's just coming from me. I won't judge if you want to wear a mask too. That's up to you. Anyone else with final thoughts on Sundance going too woke?
Going too woke. No, I was going to go back up and
we'll go back to the other thing.
No. I was just going to say, I mean, I just took my family and I just went to New York City just a weekend ago, and that was at the height of the Omicron variant. And we took every single precaution. So we went to go see Ain't Too Proud, which is the Temptations musical on Broadway, went to the American Museum of Natural History. Those are all places that we felt comfortable. I researched them beforehand. I did my due diligence to make sure that we would be as safe as possible going in. We took our own personal precautions, and I think that's what we're going to have to do. But I don't want it to be the expense of, like, I'm not going to stop living my life. And just like Sabina said, I mean, these festivals, the foundation of a festival, what makes it so unique and so different from everything else is the fact that we get a chance to build a community for 3 or 4 short days or 10 days or however long it runs. So I don't want to lose that experience of communal, sharing at that, fear of me not having taken proper precautions. I'll do what I can, but I just don't want to sacrifice, what I love in order to maintain some sort of worldwide balance.
Well, just to wrap it up, I'll say the precautions I take when it comes to skydiving or bungee jumping is I never do it. So I don't have the possibility of dying from that or doing any sort of extreme sport that might put me at peril. I just never do it. And so I'm very risk averse when it comes to extreme sports. I was an indoor kid and I'm an indoorsman, as I like to say on my social media profile. Anyone, I want to get to a couple.
Ellen, I'm going to bring up Beamer's comment here. One of the worst movies of all time that I love couldn't be made today, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. I need to let you guys know that the majority of bad cinema has been made by white men. So there you go.
Blame me, why don't you?
No, I mean, if you guys would get your act together and make some good movies once in a while.
Well, there's a lot of movies that couldn't be made today, but
Blazing Saddles for one.
Blazing Saddles, there should be, Gary Beekler of Neurotic says they should just make a modern day Blazing Saddles, like something that sort of comments on the culture, but not in a way that tells you how to think. Go back and watch Blazing Saddles. Go watch 2004 Team America. You will be blown away.
Tropic Thunder.
Exactly. And here's a good Wing It Productions. Don't hate the media, become the media. Look, I am a college dropout. Went to college for 2 years, wrote a book, required reading in college for independent film studies. My book, The Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide, which you can get. You can get this book. I'll show it to you. You can get it used on Amazon. You can get it used on Amazon. My book, Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide, 4 editions, working on currently a 5th edition. And I'll let you guys know about that at some point. We're going to wrap up this topic. We're actually going to start. Let's talk about movies. Let's talk about movies
Excuse me.
Let's talk about movies in Park City. Okay. First movie we should talk about. I want to talk about We Met in Virtual Reality. Who saw We Met in Virtual Reality?
I saw that one.
Great. Let's talk about it, Alan. I'm gonna put myself in the hot seat because I want to talk about this movie. This is a brilliant documentary that was shot in virtual reality. There's a thing called virtual chat, VR chat. Oh,
that's me.
Oh, what was that? Was that you? Oh, great. All right, Alan. So I want to talk about We Met in virtual.
Norm. Norm always gets shoved down to the one where there's always some icon over his face. You do.
I'm gonna
you do
change that. I'm going to change this, and we're going to. So I appreciate your patience here, folks. All right. So I want to talk about here's your edit point, Alan. Okay, here you go. I want to talk about the Sundance movie We Met in Virtual Reality. It is a documentary that was shot entirely in a thing called VR chat, which is sort of like this Second Life experience where you create an avatar of yourself and you interact with people. And it's visually amazing. I mean, it really is like the metaverse, right? This documentary was made right after the lockdowns. The filmmaker who created this movie shot it all in VR. There is no live action footage. He all shot it in VR chat. And it follows a bunch of people who were disconnected because of being, locked down. They had no way really to communicate with the outside world. So they went into VR chat. They made friends. One of the women in this movie actually teaches an ASL class, which is American Sign Language. She teaches it in VR chat. And I only know one off the top of my head, which is bullshit. That means bullshit. That's the one I remember. I know a couple others, but anyways, so also it shows a couple that meets in VR chat and actually gets married. There's a wedding. First of all, at first I thought this is weird. And then the feelings I went through was, this is really touching. This is really emotional. Now it's very much augmented by audio, right? You hear these conversations, people have parties, they have a New Year's Eve party, right? I mean, it's really incredible. All the kinds of life experiences you would have in real life. They actually go to the beach and drive on this Jeep, and they're playing music. They're doing all the kind of fun outdoor activities you would do in real life, but they're all in virtual reality. So part of me is like, oh my God, this is so fun. And then there was at a certain point, somewhere within the midst of the doc, I had this slow sinking, depressed thought of this is our future. We're going to be stuck in the Matrix. I really think this doc is, and it doesn't make any kind of broad sweeping generalizations about people. There's no judgment. It's fly in the wall. These are people who live in a VR space, and these are their experiences. Nothing about it technically, it's not a comprehensive documentary in that sense. It's more of creating a tone and a feeling. I was captivated by it. I found it incredibly absorbing and and I don't know. I found it really worthwhile to see. Alan, what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think just the world that you're brought into is quite incredible, and I think the community that's being built is interesting. And I with you, I have my reservations about that. I think it's a great place for people who feel marginalized, who feel kind of like outcasts in the world to come together and hide behind, so to speak, an avatar, and be able to develop social skills or to be able to develop a community. At the same time, though, I'm there's a frustration I have with, this idea of, we still live in the real world, and we still need to go out there and be able to, in a way, accept who we are, the way, our body shapes, our body types, our feelings. And I'm not sure that VR necessarily solves a lot of those problems, but that's not really an issue that this movie addresses at all. It really wants to show that there is a community for people who feel unattached from the world, to be able to find some kind of attachment. And so there's all this conflict that goes on. I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know that I'm convinced that I would want to do this. maybe, you got me into Second Life for some reason. So, that's, I liked it, but I have so many misgivings about it. And then the last thing is, to me, it felt like the first step to the Matrix. This is the first point where we plug ourselves into the computer, into the network, into the internet. And, is it a good thing? Cyberdyne, here we come. Oh, you're muted.
This is what I actually liked about the film, is that it doesn't judge.
Yeah.
It just tells a story of people who are in VR chat and how they experienced the world and found friendships, and in some cases love. They play pool, they drink, they do like normal things. And you can actually physically hear, audio wise, you can hear people drinking, and then you see their VR characters drinking. They sort of show VR chat warts and all, which is totally fine. But I really enjoyed this film because it didn't make any kind of judgments, right? It just specifically just showed, like, here's a story of people who got through the lockdown because they met in virtual reality. So it won't be the last documentary about this topic. I mean, we actually do events about every month. This is true, we built a film threat cinema in Second Life. And we've been doing monthly events. If you just look up #Film Threat Second Life, you'll actually see like pictures. We feature movies there. We're actually doing a movie in February. I don't know the date. It's The Spine of Night. We're doing a presentation there about that movie, and we got Lucy Lawless, Joe Manganiello, Larry Fessenden, and the directors of The Spine of Night are going to be in Second Life with us, having a conversation about the movie Spine of Night, where we show scenes from the movie. It's very R-rated, by the way. But yeah, we built this in Second Life because we want to be able to feature movies there, and movies that kind of tackle topics mostly related to tech and pop culture. And that's what we'll be featuring inside. And so I've had some experience. I hate to say, I freaking love it. Like, it's really fun to go there and you're like meeting these people and you're chatting, and like, it's kind of cool. It's different than what we're doing now. I'm kind of like, not everything should be a Zoom call. I mean, we're kind of on a Zoom call movie review thing, but yeah, I really enjoyed the film, and I hope you join us for this Spine of Night.
I'm still working on my avatar for that one, but
you're still working on your avatar?
Yeah.
Well, like, check it out. We'll put the link in the description of this to sign up for the Film Threat Second Life events. They're really cool. Come and check out our movie theater, and you'll get these presentations about indie film. We got a couple quick comments here. We'll go through these.
Has
Let's
anyone
see.
seen What If with John or not What If, How To with John Wilson on HBO?
No, I want to.
It's a phenomenal series, and it's unlike anything I've seen, and I highly recommend it to anybody. But they had this one aspect to it where he poses a question and then he goes down the rabbit hole, and one avenue led him to a group of people who were of an Avatar subgroup, the movie Avatar, and they dedicated so much of their time to learning the Na'vi language. And he went to a group where they all met in person, and it was amazing to hear from these people who were so either paralyzed with fear to be in public and so on and so forth, but they found a community within the online world, within this Na'vi, within this fictional world. And some of them saved her from suicide, and some of them fell in love. And it was so touching to know that they could be their best selves in this virtual setting that the real world wouldn't afford them. It reminds me of that.
Yeah, well, also, I feel like the Avatar, that's like a rabbit hole going down. That's going to be like a furry situation. I kind of feel like that's where it's going to devolve. But
obviously, yes, that's why we do it.
That's where it all ends up.
I mean, that's why I heard about it.
Wait a sec. Let's go back to Frank the Bunny's comment. Frank, I want to get through these comments first before we get to our review. Frank the Bunny 666 says, and this is all before Zuckerberg's metaverse. I actually hope that I really think that if metaverses do evolve and become a thing, that it's decentralized. Part of the problem with social media is there are too many dominant social media platforms, right? There's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the money. And that's it, right? I mean, there's fringe platforms, and that's fine. But none of them have speaking of avatars, Alan has mine. For some reason, I don't know why that's coming up for him. But yeah, I hope that there's not one dominant metaverse platform, that there are many. But get ready, you're going to have to get your property in there and whatnot. It's weebs and waifu avatars, basically. Someone says, Frank, VR chat, really? LMAO, we know what that means. And you know they'll buy them, Shinatsky says. They'll buy them out. Yeah, you're going to be able to buy. You may live in your pod, in your tiny $3,000 a month apartment or studio place, but you are going to be, when you're not spending time in the stacks, to reference Ready Player One, you're going to be in your VR world where you own a mansion that's a VR mansion, and you're going to spend your money on digital stuff and NFTs, and there you are. Alan, let's move on to our next review. Why don't you take this one? You're muted. You're muted, by the way. Why don't you start over? You're muted. So unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I'm doing behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, so from now on for the chat, just so you know, from now on for the chat, we're going to be talking about individual movies playing at Sundance. I have not seen some of these, and our group will all jump in for those that have seen these movies. And this is the first wave. We're going to be doing these live streams actually every couple days, talking about, a chunk of films that writers from Film Threat have seen. So thank you to everyone in the chat. Hail to the Film Threat team. Hail to the chat. Thank you. I just appreciate all your presence and your participation. Alan, let's get into our first review.
All right, Norm, you talked about you watched The Watcher. I feel like this is the horror film of Sundance.
Well, it's more like a thriller, like a Hitchcockian thriller, where Micah Monroe gets followed again, and she and her husband they move to Bucharest because he can speak Romanian, and he gets a job, promotion. They move him over there, and he's an executive, but she is lost. She doesn't know the language. She's just very like, okay, but then from her apartment, they're flat, like about 5 stories up. She looks across to the other building, and there seems to be a figure looking at her through the window, and it's all very kind of blurry and very ambiguous. But then one day she waves, and it waves back, and so it's basically her being pursued by something that she's. It's cool. It's very cool. And suspenseful, and she basically feels very isolated. There's lots of men around her, all speaking Romanian. She is not. She doesn't speak the language. She's trying to navigate. She's trying to explain. There's something after her. There's also a killer on the loose. It was fun. It didn't reach like the heights of like Rear Window or something like that, but it was good.
So it's kind of like stalker horror. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like a mystery stalker horror type thing where she keeps having these run-ins with an ambiguous figure that she believes is following her, and craziness ensues. So. And the crazier things get, the less people believe her, and until there's the big finale. So I'm trying to be ambiguous because I don't want to give it away, but
I know.
Can I just say, Norm, you don't sound super enthusiastic about it either. Here's the thing is, and this is what kind of sucks about the festival being virtual, is that I'll bet if you saw that in a theater, it would be way better. A lot of these indie movies, they don't play as well, on whatever. Even if you've got like a decent sized 4K TV, which I do have, it's not the experience, the energy in the room, the palpable fear. It doesn't. Do you feel that like having the festival being virtual and seeing some of these movies virtual, does that have an impact on the experience?
Absolutely. And there's 2 things happening with the festival this year. Number one, there's the pandemic fatigue, where we're just tired as hell doing this virtually again. Last night I texted Sabina and I was like, I'm kind of sad doing this Sundance thing alone again, and but there's absolutely nothing like being in a packed theater at midnight, waiting to see what crazy shit pops up on the screen, and ready to go down that journey. So, am I frozen here?
No, you're
No,
good.
you look good to us. You look good to us.
So okay, yeah. So
Hey, you actually, Norm, if you were frozen, you'd be at Sundance.
huh? So, yuckity yuck.
Yeah. It's true, Norm. The kinetic energy is so important now.
Yeah,
it really is,
especially in horror. Even comedy. Yeah.
I miss going to Trader Joe's and seeing the faces of the people that work at Trader Joe's. They're almost the only people who smile at me when I'm out and shopping. I love Trader Joe's.
That's why you have to learn how to smile.
Yeah, well, I'll settle for the faces here, but yeah, no, I think we're all done with this, and let's hope that next year Sundance is not virtual, that we'll all be together, freezing our asses off in Park City, drinking
at the Film Threat condo.
At the Film Threat condo, sleeping 4 hours a night, if that.
Yeah.
So,
if you're lucky.
Well, hopefully this new Megatron variant is not going to be as.
Wait, is Megatron the next one? Oh my god!
I have no idea. All right.
Alan just named it.
What's our next film, Alan? Or do you have anything?
Rob, why don't you talk to us about Fire of Love?
Yes. All right. So speaking of, grandiose and seeing it on as large a screen as possible, this is one of the ones that I really wish, even though I have a large screen as well, I still would love to witness this in IMAX, because this is a documentary. Sarah Dosa is the director, and she came across all of these 16 millimeter tapes of all this footage from a volcanologist couple, and not volcanologists, but actually they studied volcanoes. So they were geologists, the Crafts. They're a French couple, Katia and Maurice Kraft. Imagine if you had to cast them into a Hollywood production, it would be Tilda Swinton and Stephen Ray. That's kind of what they would look like. And they chased these volcanoes all around the globe, and sadly, tragically, they miscalculated one in 1991, and both died at the base of a volcano in Japan. Anyway, she came across this treasure trove of all of their footage and had to piece it together, and she created almost a love story between the couple, because you didn't know too much about the couple, even though they had very animated personalities when they were on television. We didn't know too much about them, and she kind of had to, it was like a puzzle, getting a bunch of puzzle pieces without the box top, and she had to kind of put it together. So she had it narrated by Miranda July, the indie darling, who uses this kind of honey-coated voiceover for it. It almost is like she's reading love letters to the audience. And then there was bits and pieces of animation, and I had Lucy Munger is the animator, who kind of filled in the gaps with these really whimsical, almost Monty Python-esque visuals in between it, and told their story, their story of how they got together, how they both fell in love with these, with this incredible natural occurrence, and how they tried to set out to kind of warn the world, but to educate them through education and say, hey, look, this is what you need to do. They in, I think it was in 1985, there was one in, I can't remember. Maybe it was Colombia, a Colombian mountain that was going to blow. They warned the officials, but the officials thought it would be too much effort. So unfortunately, tragically, that ended up with about, I think it was 25,000 people dying as a result of that. So, you know, they dedicated themselves to the cause and to education, and we get these wonderful home movies, quote unquote, of them. But these home movies are just they're in these suits, you know, that look like just a thin mylar kind of suit in front of these just like orgasmic displays of lava that is just bubbling over in front of them, and it's just stunning. I mean, they look like they're characters out of a Wes Anderson movie, and he's got this penchant to do these kind of rack zooms, so it looks like a Wes Anderson movie at times too. But it's just it's stunning. The imagery itself is just outstanding, and I really hope to see it if it ever comes around.
Well,
in that form.
Actually, Rob,
format.
I saw you're glitching there a little bit, but I saw some stills from this movie, and it looks spectacular. It's something that looks like it has to be seen on the big screen. I'm sorry, like it just looks so like images you could like. It looks like a Hollywood movie, right? Like it's insane images.
It does, and it's
lava eruption. It's nuts, and wow, it just sounds amazing.
No Tommy Lee Jones, no Anne Hesh, no Pierce Brosnan. This is the real Dante's Peak or whatever you want. I mean, there's no visual effects outside of the charm and charisma of the two leads, who are just, I mean, you want to spend more time with them, and kind of wish they were still with us.
Yeah. In reading the review, it sounded like there's a found footage nature to the footage that's in the movie, because, you know, they're going through their archives. Can you talk a little bit about how the film, you know, successfully presented all their material?
Yeah. So what she did was director Sarah Dosa. She had to kind of piece this together, these little, you know, vignettes of their lives of over 20 years into a narrative. And that narrative, you know, she had Miranda, the indie darling Miranda July, give the voiceover to it, and she had this, you know, very, very sweet voiceover to it. And the gaps, she used Lucy Munger is the visual artist who created these whimsical animations, and it was educational. Like, I learned the difference between magma and lava, and the difference between a red volcano and a gray volcano. You know, and it was, you know, they would have loved to see this feature on them if they were still alive today.
Oh, quite tragic. All right. Definitely one I want to see. Let's move on. Sabina, you saw When You Finish Saving the World, and I believe this is Jesse Eisenberg's directorial debut.
Yeah, big debut. He wrote and directed, and
wait, who wrote and directed?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, Jesse Eisenberg. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and my boyfriend and I were talking about this. We think he may have moved to an area that is in this film to get out of Hollywood, which I think informed his story better. Or I don't know the exact details, but, you know, he definitely lived in his own place to create this film and screenplay. And the producers of the film are Emma Stone and Dave McCary. I don't know Dave as well as Emma, obviously, but they read his script and were like, we're doing this film.
What's it about?
So what it's about is it stars Julianne Moore and a newcomer, Finn Wolfhand, and Finn is their son. Julianne's married to a chancellor of a college in a small Indiana town. Very American white bread deal. And Julianne Moore runs a women's shelter for battered women and their kids. And the shelter actually is a place where these people live until they can get their life back in order. And so she is a very staunch, stern, heady, intelligent woman, in, you know, the twilight of her life a little bit, you know, and she is very unemotional, down to the clothing she's wearing. It was really well done for her character, and she is recognizing that no one in the family is connected, not the father, not the son. The son is a online sort of music sensation. He writes songs. He's been playing music his whole life. His name is Ziggy. He's kind of this sort of, you know, regular teenager in the 21st century with his online presence and playing music, trying to get women, you know, trying to get the girls, and talks about how many followers he has. And he's always performing. He actually puts a red light outside his room so nobody interrupts him when he's online, because his parents are completely detached from him. That being said, they're also completely detached from each other. And the father, who isn't really quite a big character in the film, kind of has points where he shows how narcissistic and egocentric everybody is. And so Julianne Moore gets a new person into the women's shelter with her son, and notices how bright the son is and how he's taking care of his mother, who's been assaulted by his father, and he kind of still works for his father. And she starts to mentor him in going into higher education. And so she's sort of found a replacement for Ziggy. In the meantime, Ziggy's trying to goes after a woman in class, a young adult who is very political, very mindful, and he goes to one of these poetry readings where she does this poem about the Maldives sinking into the ocean, and why, and how indigenous people are abused and oppressed. And so he tries to put the poem to music, and he fails because he's too shallow to understand. So it's very well done. Julianne Moore saves the film. It has some interesting references into popular culture, but it's so it's barren. Like, you see the same people, you see the same empty streets, you're in their house, and you're hearing these conversations, and you feel like there should be more to it. And I think that's a pandemic issue, in making a film during a pandemic. But because Julianne Moore is such a sophisticated, gifted, talented woman, she holds that film. And Zoe, being a newcomer, he's great. He does his musicianship well, but you're not connected. But for a first effort for Sundance, I thought it was really well done. And yeah, it's kind of there. Like, I don't dislike it. I don't think it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, but it was a nice way to start the festival. And that's kind of it.
It sounds like Sundance is kind of notorious for, like, the sort of opening movie is kind of meh. And it sounds like this is sort of because like I just hearing your description of it is like family drama. This happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then what's the fucking point? And I kind of feel like if it's all about then this happens, and it's like there's little sort of observations here and there, and then also sort of pandering to the audience with the, like, the sort of suburban family, like, tackling indigenous people issue always seems fucking pandering to me. To me, it does. I just look at that and I'm like, why the fuck do you care about this? You have no experience of that. It just annoys the shit out of me personally and I've seen that at Sundance for years. It's a movie that falls in the category of white people problems. It's just like, totally. Hey, yeah, you're complaining about something that it would be better. It would be better if someone else told this story. That's how I always think about that. And it's kind of annoying, but it's like, Alan, I feel bad. You could put me up there. But
you're talking right now.
And
no, we have to move me to the bottom. We got to move me to the bottom.
The other thing to add to this story is there was no ending. Like, he did not have an ending to his story here. It is the most bizarre, like, she's watching his stuff on her screen at the center. Zoe gets up out of class and walks out of school and goes to see his mother, and he expects everybody to know him, which I thought was sort of interesting. And someone recognized him and then goes about his business, and he's like, I'm a sensation. That's his whole deal. And he looks at his mother, she looks at him. That's it. And I'm like,
Mm.
it doesn't work for me. They didn't.
It's
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer.
I've seen a million movies like this at Sundance, and they're just okay, but they have
Yeah,
like
yeah.
names in it, and it's and sometimes it'll be like a director crossing over into being a filmmaker. And I'm actually sure I'm actually I'll bet that there's some stuff that's actually really good, but I don't
Julianne
know.
Moore is amazing. She like I said, she is pro all the way to the hair, like her walk, I mean, everything she does holds that movie together.
Well,
yeah.
again, you know, it wouldn't be Sundance without some hits and some misses. What's our next film, Alan? I'm gonna, as they say in chat, I'm gonna BRB. So I'll BRB.
Okay.
Fun fact: I had the opportunity. I took Jesse Eisenberg kayaking actually one
Oh.
summer.
Oh,
Very nice guy, awesome
But
guy.
was he any good?
He was
Did you have to
great.
say
He did fine.
he's super athletic, from what I understand.
He was, and he's quite astute as well.
Yeah,
He's a very
yeah.
smart man.
Very, yeah.
Okay. Norm's got a screening coming up, so let's talk about La Guerra Civil. Civil? I don't know. Why do I even try accents? Yeah, this is actually, we got a shout out from Eva Longoria about this. Tell us about your film.
Okay, so as Chris mentioned, sometimes the first movies are kind of meh. Opening night movies are kind of meh, but I got to tell you, that's not true with the documentaries that they use to open the festival. Some of them are absolutely amazing, and this is one of them. It's called La Guerra Civil or whatever. Listen, I'm the worst SoCal person ever because I still didn't find out how to pronounce this. Guys, in the chat, please let us know how to pronounce this. I'm terrible. This movie was brilliant. And circling back on Rob's review of Fire of Love, which I also got to see, this movie, some of the best documentaries expose you to a world that you have no knowledge of and that you instantly identify with. And you become, you start to connect with it and find your story in that story and find common ground. In this case, this is a documentary about the division between old school Mexicans and new first generation Latinos in Los Angeles when a fight was scheduled between two very iconic boxers, Oscar De La Hoya and Julio Cesar Chavez. Now, okay, why do we even need to know about this? Like, who cares about this boxing documentary? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it was, first off, it told the story of these two boxers. Chavez grew up in a really rough town in Mexico. De La Hoya was a first generation Latino from East LA, and the pretty boy. And they both came to represent kind of the division in the Latino narrative in America. And it was fascinating. There were the fans of Chavez who were like, no, because he actually had been boxing for a lot longer than De La Hoya. So when yeah, sorry, I'm getting a text. It's La Guerra Civil. So anyway,
Okay,
I had to check it. But so De La Hoya represented kind of the pretty boy, first generation Latino, and Chavez was the old school. And it became this culture battle when they had this fight at Caesar's Palace. And it was just amazing. It was an eye-opening look into a culture that I had no understanding of. I mean, like, I don't like boxing, but but this was a fascinating documentary. It was and Eva Longoria, first of all, revelation. Like, she's a damn good director. Damn good.
Well, I will say, you pointed out something. The documentaries at Sundance tend to be much better in quality than the narrative features. The narrative features can be hit and miss. The documentaries are almost always. That's why I would always go see the docs. It's like,
Yeah, no question.
Even if you don't care about the subject matter. And look, Norm, I could get you into boxing or even UFC. Think of it as gay porn with shorts on. If you can think of it,
no, I disagree.
Shorts.
I thoroughly disagree.
You would like it.
No, it doesn't have to be sexual. Okay. I don't always think about dick. Okay. So the thing is, I don't know. I just was completely drawn into the story of these two guys and the culture shift they represented. And Eva Longoria just kept the movie just moving at a clip. She was also very sharp in keeping their narratives very clear and what they represented and what their fight meant. So I just thought it was brilliant. It was a damn good documentary.
Well, I know you got to run, Norm, because you actually have a screening. Which can I just say, this whole VR virtual festival thing, the screening, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. First of all, you got to get your tickets. You could sell unlimited tickets. It's like I think Slamdance got it right. It's $10 and you get it's $10, slamdance.com. You get to see all the movies. Sundance, you have to see it at a certain time. I don't know if that works for me. Can we have a window of time that we can watch the movie? I know they're trying to run it like it's like Sundance. It's not like Sundance. It's online. It's streaming. I feel like that could be another topic for us. Like
I think we'll talk about
5 hour.
Monday.
I thought they said like 5 hours once you start it.
Yeah, and the Bill Cosby doc is 4 hours long. It's a series, and so I stopped it to come here because I want to watch it. But
well, I'm sorry to explain at the end. He's in jail.
Yeah,
he goes to jail at the end of the doc.
I think he's
spoiler alert.
I'm just saying that,
spoiler alert.
You can only mimic so many aspects of reality to the point where it just gets ridiculous. Like the land acknowledgements, where who knows where people are watching it. That's illogical. The window times. Just move the festival to the summer, out of flu season, Sundance. I'm gonna stay on this for a while because this doesn't make sense. Start to make your decisions with some sense of logic. Otherwise, you're destroying the experience for filmmakers. The sponsors are not happy, and this doesn't make any sense. A virtual film festival might work for a smaller. I think Slamdance got it right. I feel like the way that Sundance is doing it is they're trying to mimic the experience of being at the festival, which cannot be mimicked on a Zoom call. These are all freaking Zoom calls, including what we're doing now. That's my fear.
There's a fear that the value of going to Sundance is going to be diminished, and if it keeps going this way, was it?
It's already too expensive. It's too expensive. We used to go to Sundance in the early 2000s. We'd get a condo, a huge one. We'd have 8 people stuffed in the condo. Everybody had to do at least 3 reviews a day. We would review more than half of the movies playing at Sundance and Slamdance.
But my point is, what now does it mean to say, hey, my film played at Sundance? That's if we continue to go down this route, what is the value of having the Sundance laurels compared to everyone else?
Well, if they're going to be virtual next year, I just feel like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Maybe they need to have 2 festivals, maybe a winter and a spring or summer, something. But if Sundance is going to remain relevant, they need to make some changes. They need to make some dramatic changes. They need to look at some of the other conversations that we've had, and begin to take a serious look at where they're going as a festival. Because in my opinion, they're becoming less and less relevant. Yeah. It's not as important as an indie filmmaker to have your movie at Sundance, because you can just put your movie out. You could take all the resources and money you would have spent on a little festival tour, and you can just put that into marketing. and you can go and sell your movie. Additionally, streaming services, I think, have diminished the relevance of festivals. I mean, really start to ask these questions, which is why I will never be on a panel at Sundance, because they don't want someone with my kind of ideas actually speaking out. So whatever. I've always been sort of a pariah at Sundance.
There's sort of an irony going on right now with Sundance too, with their focus on oppressed people and giving acknowledgement to everyone in society who's never had any type of spotlight in a town like every mountain town, because that's where I'm living, is unaffordable to everyone. The pandemic struck. All the wealthy people in every city went to every mountain town across the country
or beach.
And now there's no place for the people who work and live in those mountain towns to live anymore. They can't afford it. In fact, if you were smart enough, you sold out and retired because you could. And so I don't understand how Sundance can be the festival it's supposed to be. And I love it. A lot of my life has poured into it. And I've met so many amazing people because of the event. But now it's not honoring its purpose. And as you said, independent filmmakers, Sundance is its, crown jewel, yet it's not serving the audience it's supposed to. And there are a million other festivals that do, and it's affordable and it's fun and they want you on a panel.
Well, Sundance is, it's sort of this nonstop, and I feel like you can get lost in the shuffle. You can be a small indie with no stars, really amazing movie. You can play at the Egyptian at midnight and no one will see it and you're not going to get it. Or you can go to a small film festival in Idaho, Boise, or somewhere. No, seriously, I might actually, I might actually be going to Boise, Idaho for a film festival in
which one?
End of March. It's
oh yeah. Oh, you saw that note.
Are you going to Treefort?
Yes, Film Fort.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I've been involved.
We'll talk about it because they invited me to attend. More than likely, I'll attend. But real quick, so is Sundance still relevant? I feel like it's the audience. I don't know who the audience is anymore, right? I don't know who the audience is anymore, right? Because it's incredibly expensive to go. Like I say, in the early 2000s, we get a condo, we could all afford it. It wasn't a big deal. Now it's like we have to look at oh shoot, with flights and everything, we might as well just drive, and we'll drive 11 hours from LA to go there. And then we have to get a condo that's way outside of town to be able to afford. And we're not talking so cheap. We're talking about $3,000 for 5-night stay.
Oh, yeah.
And then driving.
I live 4 hours away, so it's not a big deal to go. And I know a lot of people. I have clients in Park City. I know that place. I've been writing about it for 15 years. I couldn't even find a place to stay. And that's when I said to Alan, I'm not going to fight for tickets to get tested every 2 days. It's so much time to even go to a film. Putting that, I'm like, what are they thinking?
Well, that's all. I mean, look, Sundance is always virtue signaled, but now it's it's off the charts. Yeah. It's off the charts where it's hurting the experience. It's hurting the festival, and it's leaving out. Look, let me be honest with you. Let me just tell it like it is. It is a festival for rich white people. All right. I've always thought that. I've thought it since the 90s. This is rich. I could never afford to go to the ski club when I was in high school because I didn't know it at the time. I grew up pretty poor. Single mom. I was poor. You know what? Didn't care. I was loved by my family. That mattered more than stuff and more than going to the ski club. But now I see it and it's just oh, wow, this is just, I will go to these festivals this is the rich white people festival. And they like to think of themselves as virtuous because they're lifting up the small oppressed people that can't help themselves. That's the mindset, and it's freaking pandering bullshit.
As someone who actually founded a film festival in my hometown here, that's exactly why I kind of left the board years ago, because when we started it in 1998, it was to bring voices to young filmmakers. We were all in our 20s, and we said, let's get these local filmmakers and national films on here or around here, because we just didn't have it. It was a cultural wasteland. So we built one. We had it, for the next 10 years, we put stuff in education, and it grew and it grew and it gained in popularity. And then the board became even 10 years later, I was still the youngest person on the board of directors. I was it was all white. And now we are in a vacation destination here. So it now serves the purpose of just having an outlet for these people who own second beach homes down in this area here, and they can tell all their friends to come to the beach house for the weekend and go see all these films that were like previously playing in New York and Philadelphia and so on and so forth. And it actually lost all the purpose that it was founded on, and that was to be as a voice for the community, for the indigenous population here, for the young filmmakers, everything.
Rob,
this
you
is
and I
any
have, we have similar
Sorry.
stories. I founded the Sun Valley Film Festival. I was the first director. I sat on the board. I walked away. I'm like, what just happened? What
Thing.
happened here? Boutique festival for the wealthy? Put your films in, pay for it to be there? Sure, it's fun partying all day long, but who are we serving?
Isn't that why most rich people invest? Most rich people. Oh wait, Norm, you got to go. Any final thoughts on this, Norm?
Bye, Norm.
Say something.
I have to go cover a movie.
Okay, but any final thoughts on this before you leave?
No, I gotta.
All right.
There's lots to think about here.
Monday.
And
we'll bring it up on Monday.
Love you, Norm. Love you, Norm. Take care.
All right, guys.
Later, sir.
Adios.
Good seeing you again, Norm.
Later. Take care. Back to this. I just feel like it's why do rich people invest in the arts, right? And it's so they can brag to their friends.
And
they
feel
can
good
brag
about
to their
themselves
friends
without actually having to do something.
Without actually having to do something.
Right
It's like, look, I gave $100,000 to this movie. I hope this movie gets into Sundance so I can go to the party. And they get the executive producer credit. I feel like there's a lack of honesty in the indie film world about how all this stuff works. Mm-hmm. And there's a really interesting comment that was put before we even started going live about Sundance sort of being fixed. I've always felt that aspects of Sundance are like a professional wrestling match where the outcome is determined before the event takes place, meaning where a movie is going to sell is pre-negotiated before the movie even premieres at Sundance. The news is held until Sundance, so that like this movie sold to Netflix. I mean, that was negotiated in November. The movie already was in, and then it plays Sundance, and it's announced during the week, the 10 days of, the 2 weeks of Sundance, right? It's announced then. And they save those announcements for then. It's like, it's just, I've seen it. It's like, I used to go wide-eyed in the 90s when I would go to Sundance and think, this is just all about small filmmakers like Kevin Smith, who sold this movie on a napkin, which is a true story, by the way. And they just worked hard, and it's all about merit. And no, it's about people It's about people getting in. And there are slots set aside for certain distributors and people and they're a much, much smaller of like a movie that just got in because it was a cool movie and some programmer probably at a lower level fought for it. Fought for that movie. And those are the movies that I love to champion and let people know about. And usually the ones that are most worthwhile in the end. So I question, like, every year, to me, Sundance is like, they're making this crazy decision. It's not if you care about the messages in these indie films, you would care about the maximum number of people seeing it, the maximum number. So so I don't know. I feel like Sundance is becoming more and more insular, a club, a smaller club that I feel like I used to be a part of. I used to be a part of the club. I'm not really a part of that. I don't know that I ever really was, but in any case, I'm curious your thoughts, and I want to get to the comments too.
Yeah, let me ask you this question though. But I think of the movie For Your Consideration, where is there a point where filmmakers are going to say, if I want to get into Sundance, make sure we have this message, make sure we have this, and so there's this checklist we have to go down our movie in order to get that chance. And do you feel like we're at that point, or we're getting to that point?
I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I don't know if I feel so strongly. What do you think?
I think that this is such a multi-pronged conversation.
Yeah.
One is you need exhibition scenarios for independent filmmakers. It's so important for artists to have a place for their work to be shown. And unfortunately, in a pandemic, we're doing it virtually, but they're doing the best they can. I think Film Threat serves an amazing purpose for independent filmmakers and people who love the business. They want to know our general opinion. They know that we are pretty much writing what we think. It's fully honest. And I think that Sundance, being one of the founding independent film festivals of what, 25 years, I think, or 26.
No, since 1985.
1985. So I think that they what Robert Redford started is still there, but it's morphed in a way that business has made industry too, and business. I mean, the state of Utah supports Sundance. That's where a lot of their money's coming from. That state needs the festival because of the money it brought in, especially before the pandemic. So there are so many things that are now connected to the survival and success of these types of events. And so it's these multi-pronged things. And now, how do you take that down? It's not a house of cards. It's political also. And so I think Sundance is trying to find its way and navigate the 21st century of what we're doing with so much material too. And series, web series, and the shorts world, and they don't, it's how do you do it all? And I think that it's no one's done it. They're forging a ground. But you're very right, Chris. It's that who are we serving? Who's benefiting? And if things have already been done before you get to the festival, what's the point?
I just feel there's a lot of stuff that, in my having gone to Sundance for years, that seems very pandering and a bit irritating. I want to get to some of these comments real quickly. Shanatsky says, it always was a club. You said it yourself. You were an outsider. They're just no longer hiding it. Shanatsky said something earlier. It's the trophy mentality. They'll give you a banana sticker, but keep you out of the penthouse. I love banana stickers. Let's not
especially if they're scratch and sniff.
Banana. Hate to break it to you.
Commenting on your T-shirt, Rob. Love that everything is a remix shirt. True. Unfortunately, insert applicable R word. People with Shanatsky again. People with money now want their messages out there no matter what, instead of just I funded that. And someone Dane Fagerholm says, "Good morning, sirs and misses." Good morning, Dane.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So. I don't know. Is Sundance still relevant? I think that in general, I think festivals are less relevant. Filmmakers have discovered that there are multiple pathways towards success. Festivals are one pathway. There's a documentary I'm working on that'll be out later this year. We're not showing it at film festivals. We're probably going to show it at comic conventions and just release it on VOD with a couple of key screenings, but that's it. We're not going the festival route. Then there's another movie coming out we're going to submit to festival. This is going to completely derail this documentary we have.
It's not going to be at Sundance, I can tell you that.
It's not going to be at Sundance now. The Film Threat.
You ruined it for us.
The Film Threat Sucks documentary, which has been in the works for like a decade now.
Killed it right now. I'm getting Sundance.
Hey, you know what? Whatever. I'm honest. If anyone has shot themselves in the foot with their career more than anyone else, that would probably be me. So, I guess I could be more Film Threat, or even myself could be more successful if I feel like I could sort of bend over to whatever the corporate sponsor interests are, but I don't give a fuck. So there you go.
You can't take one for the team, really.
No, I love my team. I love everyone at Film Threat. We have such a great, it's so weird how different everyone is at Film Threat, but we all like get along and like to laugh and hang out and talk about movies, and we're all very different, and who cares? Like, I love that. So
just as Sabina said, I mean, the now that it has become from an event to an industry or a business, that there are so many lives that are dependent on the success of it. It's like the, now we have gender reveal parties, and there are people who coordinate those for you, or the wedding industry where, you know, you have to have a specialist who plans all of it and who brings it all together. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's this event that has turned into more than just a singular event. It is now a self-sustaining being entity.
Well, so I would say this, some of that is not Sundance's fault. It's the circus that is outside of Sundance. When you go up Main Street and you see this lounge and the thing, and I'm not even going to mention them, but there's all like this lounge and this, and there's the gifting suite only for the celebrities. I mean, it's like, it always would bug me. I mean, you see it a lot when it comes to award shows and stuff. You see like all the help is masked, but the celebrities are not, because, you know, science, I guess, which fucking annoys me. Any sort of like disparity. And I saw it at Sundance. It's always been there. And now it's so freaking obvious. It's just, I don't know, aspects of that kind of sick, which is why I always just like hanging out with like just regular people, which thankfully there are a lot of regular people that happen to also be filmmakers, you know, so whatever. We should move on to the next next review. But before we do, let me get to Shinatsky's comment. Talk about Six String Samurai. When are we getting Six String Samurai 2? Six String Samurai, which played at Slam Dance. And I think there was a quote from Film Thread on the poster. Yeah, Six String Samurai, really great little small indie action movie. Really great film. But Alan, we've got like another film to review that I haven't seen.
Yeah, let me talk about After Yang. You know, this is one that to me it's indicative of kind of the pretentiousness that we have of filmmaking in a way. It's a weird story. It's based on a short story, and I think it should have been a short film instead of a feature film. Stars Colin Farrell. And it's basically, he's in this family. It's somewhat in the future. Him and his wife just adopted a Chinese girl, little girl. And as a way to kind of ease her into, you know, their lives and to kind of keep her connected with her Chinese culture, they buy a synthoid, a Chinese synthoid named Yang. And he kind of serves as her brother. The synthoid is an adult, I would say a young adult, and he teaches her Chinese. He teaches about culture, and the little girl Mika, she falls in familial love with Yang. She's very attached to him, and then one day after a global dance competition, the Yang just kind of breaks down, and from there, they need to get him fixed because Mika is too attached to him and she's heartbroken and wants Yang back. But because of the cost of a synthoid, they bought it refurbished, like you would buy a refurbished Macintosh. So it's not under warranty. He has to go around town finding someone who will fix it for a price that he can afford. And then later there's this conspiracy that's found out is that Yang is basically spyware. He has a memory bank, and he's been capturing all the memories of it. And if they return Yang back to the corporate company, they're going to have all this information, privacy information stuff. But that's not what this movie is about. The movie is about what it means to be a family, what it means to you know, by looking at Yang's data bank and the memories he had prior to being with this family, because he had been owned twice before, Colin Farrell's character as the father begins to learn the value of being there for his daughter, who he has, you know, he's a workaholic father, and it's just, there's just so much to this movie. So much plot to it that has nothing to do with the heart of the movie that I feel like, you know, when I got close to the end of it, I kept thinking to myself, what the hell is this movie about? You know, is it about the conspiracy of big tech and its invasion into it? Is it about cloning and is it about synthetic humans? No, it's about family. And I just found myself really thrown in so many directions, and it's, you know, and it's like, what the hell is this film about? Because it brings up these weird ideas, these controversial ideas, but then it kind of throws it away for this story of this basically synthoid and why he broke down. And it's just, you know, and I feel like like with many films I review, I'm the only one who feels this way. It's like, I feel like that the word is going to come out that this is a beautiful film about love and family. And I'm sitting here just going, what in the world am I supposed to feel about this film? And the other thing is, why am I supposed to feel so much sympathy for a robot, for an android? You got me with Data, but that's as far as I'm going to go. It's this Yang thing is still a robot.
Alan, do you feel like it was it checking boxes like you were referring to earlier, like making sure that it had all these various?
When at the end, when I finally understood what the movie was about, like I said, it was based on a short story, and I really felt like it should have stayed a short film,
right?
Because a lot of what the film does is it tries to create this world, this future world that involves cloning, that involves synthetic humans, but it brings it up, but it never really resolves it, and there's never really any tension behind it, any conspiracies behind it. It just served as a distraction to what the true heart of the story was. And I felt like if you just stick with what it means to be a family, what it means to be a father to a daughter, that you have a much more powerful film.
Well, Alan, first of all, this description, your description of this movie, is the first movie I haven't seen that I'm actually really excited about and I want to see. It's like if TikTok moved in with you, so I like that aspect. I like the aspect of having a mistrust of big tech. I mean, big tech, it's almost like I feel my feelings about big tech are it's going to save us and enslave us at the same time. And it really has done that, right? Like it's like having a social media account is like having a loaded weapon. You can save you, and at the same time it can destroy your career if you say something that the mob does not like on social media. But I really love how you describe this movie, and it makes me want to see it even more. And I love indie sci-fi because I feel like independent sci-fi has like this sort of like it's a synthetic human, right? But like it's just sort of one aspect, almost like an episode of The Twilight Zone. I mean, you mentioned it might make a better like short film than a feature, but wow, that after Yang, even the things you said about it that sound like you didn't completely love it, I still want to see it because I think the ideas in the film really feel worth discussion.
I mean, the only thing I'll say about that is it brings it up, and it's very interesting how it's brought up. It's mostly done in conversation, and it's never really resolved or brought to any really meaningful point at the end of the movie. So I'll say that about that. But yeah, I think that's the thing is I was so interested in that aspect of it that when it went away and got into the emotion of the story, that it was like, well, why did I just spend that? Unresolved. That's how I felt.
Gotcha. All right. Well, real quick before we get to the next review, I want to say, hey, we're Film Threat. If you like what we do, you want to support us. Well, one, you can put a super chat in there and we'll make sure to answer your question. But two, you can buy a Film Threat t-shirt. We've got merch, Film Threat t-shirt or a mug that features our current logo, our classic logo, which I created this logo when I was in high school, when I was a kid. And it holds any liquid. Hot or cold, any liquid can go in here, drinkable or not. And our t-shirts cure nudity on contact. So I just want to say that before we get to our next film. Let's see if we have any comments here. And said the CCP social credit system is a big example of how tech can be misused.
Yeah,
absolutely, JC. Completely agree. That social credit system, which I hope never comes to the United States, I think it's horribly destructive to society. I think we've seen examples of it already, and it's terrible. And I hope we never see it. Alan, you want to take over and let's get to our next review.
Yeah, let me since I was doing that, let's go with Rob. Rob, sorry, I was talking. Let's do 892.
Okay, 892 was one of the kickoffs to the festival. This stars John Boyega, who is pretty much in almost every frame of it. He portrays the real life person by the name of Brian Brown Easley, Brian Brown Easley, He was a Lance Corporal Marine who had returned after serving, I think, 2 stints in the Iraq War, came back, and the VA had misplaced one of his disability checks for the titular amount. And he decided to take matters to the extreme, and was held up a Wells Fargo bank in Connecticut, I believe, to just get that amount of money back. He didn't want to harm anyone. He didn't want to, he didn't want to cause violence, even though he threatened to have a bomb. And it's based on this piece that was written in Task and Purpose back in 2018 called "They Didn't Have to Kill Him." Now, even though it is that the title right there alone gives you the outcome, it's kind of like Apollo 13, or more fittingly Dog Day Afternoon, Sidney Lumet, where if you know the ending, it still does not ruin the tension that it builds throughout. He is extremely compassionate, empathetic. There's this fundamental decency about him. He's always saying, "Sir, ma'am, thank you, please." And even while he has 2 hostages in there, they slowly, it's not like a Stockholm syndrome, but the more they hear about his particular predicament, the more that they understand his outrage, or his sense of not, of reaching his end. He has mental issues that aren't, they don't go into detail, but you can tell he's had, some delusions before. He lives in a motel. He's estranged from his daughter and his family. And the entire thing kind of rests on the shoulders of Boyega, who is just outstanding in this and is one of our best working young actors today. He's empathetic, but you can tell he's, might be a little bit more than hair trigger, but then he makes you understand why he would resort to violence, because that's all he's been trained for the past part of his life is to fight his way out of a battle. And that's what he sees himself in. And all he wants to do is shine a light to his issue of being neglected, and just wants to be heard. So it's, it's not flashy, it's not dramatic, but it does feature the final performance of Michael K. Williams, which, that's a sad footnote to the end of this. He's in it, not as long as I would like him to be. And the one flaw I think of the film is they both connect. He plays a hostage negotiator who gets in touch with Brian, and they begin to have a conversation, and they find a commonality because they both served terms as Marines. So, there's a connection there, but that connection isn't fully explored, which I really would have liked to have seen. And that would have helped it a lot, but it's not heavily stylized or heavily edited. It's very even the interior of the bank is very drab and dark. That said, it is an outstanding performance from Boyega, and worth that alone just to see him in another outstanding role.
It sounds really good, and I've always loved John Boyega. So
he's fantastic. Ever since Attack the Block, he's just I'm in for whatever he's doing.
And it's weird when you see interviews with him and you realize, like, oh yeah, he's British. Right? He's got the. I mean, I don't know.
Daniel Kaluuya. You're like, oh my gosh, that's right.
You forget that the Brits are like the best actors, right? The fact that they can do an American accent, it always blows my mind.
It's amazing.
But wow, that sounds great.
And can he shake off his Star Wars stigma now?
Yeah, well,
right?
I think absolutely. I think no one would blame John Boyega for the profound failure of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. His character, I thought, was great in Star Wars. But they never paid it off.
They never knew what to do with him. Yeah.
Well, I knew what to do with them. They didn't. They didn't know what to do with them. The obvious thing would have been to make him like the hero. He's the one that turns the stormtroopers against their they're captors, right? Like the whatever. The first
we can talk about the arc in Last Jedi and how that never got paid off either.
Nothing got paid off. That Star Wars sequel trilogy is an embarrassment, but John Boyega is not, and has come out of it unscathed. And I'm happy to see him continue to just impress people in roles like this. So, and I keep hearing about Attack the Block too, like you know, one of these days.
Love to see that.
Cool. All right, Alan, what's our next movie?
Sabina, let's go with Princess.
Yes, Princess. We're coming up to the 25th anniversary of the death of Princess Diana, and this documentary, although known, everybody, it's worldwide. It's nothing new. But director Ed Perkins and a co-director, more of a producer, his friend, decided that they had to do something because they found footage that wasn't quite what the news had, wasn't on TV shows, and they revealed what happened to Diana and why it happened through other perspectives. So he had an incredible research team, and they dug up every British tabloid, talk show, radio show, behind the scenes footage, people who had VHS cameras from the time that her engagement was announced when she was 18, all the way through to her death and her entire life. And what comes out in this film is how it might have been a turning point for paparazzi and having known that they were part of the accident that killed her, and the man she was with, but it was also important that they made this film to show that a country actually really cared about her and what she stood for, no matter what was going down with the monarchy, and a queen who had to deal with being a queen, a Prince Charles, who's a narcissistic egomaniac, and having to raise two sons in this whole modern world, and thus everything else that's gone on with that monarchy. But the country, no matter who they are, what level they are, love this woman, and they still do. And I think that's why they were compelled to make this film. What's super interesting is there is so little, again, talking heads are just not in any documentary I've seen so far. It's all audio, but this audio rocks, and definitely talking with what Chris just said about British actors, British accents, the way they speak, their use of language, that really moves this film along. It could be a little too long. It could be a little too like grandiose in how it was presented, but you know, at the end of it, I just you have to wonder, like, everything that we're talking about today in this discussion, where are we going with what we're doing? What are we doing as a society? I don't watch the news anymore. I read it because I got so sick of it during the pandemic. I can't stand any party because I don't understand it anymore. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what I'm being fed. And I think that's why this film has kind of a life, because it's a mirror of who we are as people right now. And the amount of time and effort these guys put into finding the right things to show how everyone feels and people and coming together. When Diana went into Charles's life, and this marriage had to happen so they could produce an heir, or Elizabeth, the Queen, wanted an heir. England was in the worst shape ever. You know, it was broke ass as a country, and people were in really bad shape. And it got better as time went on, and they got rid of Thatcher, and things moved on. And it became a little bit more happening and progressive, and a little bit more of a country of a united people. Because I've always felt, and I'm way overeducated on this, but racism came from England. That's how I feel. And it just spread out into the world. And it's there. It's right there in this film. It's not said out loud, but it is. And that's why I kind of liked it. It worked. It's a good Sundance film. And going back to why I just wrote an article about this. Why are film festivals important? For some, it's the curation of things being picked. And I think this one works. I know people are going to disagree with me, but I think it works. So yeah.
Nice.
How does it compare to the new film with
Spencer.
Kristen Stewart.
Spencer? How does it compare to
Oh,
Spencer?
yes. So while I was watching the film, and I have watched The Crown, I have watched all the documentaries and the news things, and what Kristen Stewart is doing is that this woman really was plucked from nowhere to be the bearer of an heir to the throne, and they knew her. I mean, her family knew each other, but she was not trained in any way to be a queen and to deal with someone like Charles, who already had his life set up. She had to fit in, and because she had such a heart, and I think this is where Kristen Stewart does such a good job, is that this was a real person who cared about people, whose life's work still continues, and that's why. And I think Kristen Stewart does this best too. This is why Charles he doesn't want to be king, and they say he shouldn't be king, whatever, is because she stole the spotlight. She actually is a leader. She was someone, and they threw her to the wolves. And she didn't have a choice. She was, and I think Kristen Stewart, has that character in her. She knows how to say very little with her acting, and it goes really far. She's very talented that way. It doesn't take much for her to get her point across. And I think that there is a right to recognize this person, especially as a woman in that monarchy that is so outdated and outlived itself, that someone was trying to make a difference, and this is what happened, and everything that went down is historic, and will continue to be so until someone like her pops up again.
That's an interesting bonus Spencer review.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but it's like, isn't it just for tourism? Isn't that like, tourism and merch? Isn't merch like a big part of
the royal family?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Brits, so they're having spent time in London when the Thatcher era ended. England loves its paparazzi, loves its news, loves its tabloids. It is brutal, and it still is. Yet, that's how people connect to each other. They feel, I've got that mug. Do you have it? Did you see that? Like, they love this stuff. It's part of who they are. They're an island. It keeps them together, so to speak. And that's just sort of at the top of my head, because I've never really thought about, why does the world hate us but loves U.S. culture? You can't sell enough Levi jeans to China and Japan for eternity, but they can't stand us, right? I mean, it's that same kind of obsession we all have with materialism, that iconic materialism. But I don't know. I mean, again, like this, and I'm just going to throw in real quick, because I know there isn't enough time, but the Sinead O'Connor film I watched too, that documentary, is a little bit more powerful, and why Sundance did a great job here is, here's a woman who freaking put it out there and said, F you to the Pope. You ruined my life. You've ruined everybody else's, and so far ahead of her time that nobody could deal with it. They didn't even know what she was talking about.
Well, save that review for another live stream.
Yeah. But just saying that they're picking these women as iconic people that are important because this is what we have in our history. That's where Sundance did do a nice job. Again, documentaries, like we all say, we just love them. And
the documentaries tend to always always do better. There's a Shanatsky says, I heavily disagree. Diana failed and loved the spotlight. She was deified because she died when she did. So Shanatsky,
the thing about Diana is, when I grew up, I didn't care about the royal family until Diana came along. I don't think most people outside of Europe cared about anything about the royal family until Diana came on the scene. And I think that's the interesting thing about it. It's this idea of, there's this world of privilege of the royal family, and then this seemingly normal person thrust into it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what endeared the world to her, because there's no other figure loved as Diana was. And because of her, why we hate everyone else about it, and why this, Harry and Meghan thing is such a big a big subject, and it's not because we love them; it's because of the controversy they generate. And so there's something about Diana herself that just kind of united the world in a way, which I find fascinating.
I agree with that comment about loving the spotlight because she had to. She didn't have a choice. I mean, what do you do?
She's thrust into it.
But you're right. She had to actually embrace it, and that's what ended up killing her. So it's kind of a weird thing. That's why the film is sort of interesting to me.
I wonder if this was the start of media training. If that's
right,
this is the perfect example of it.
Well, Chinatsky also says exactly her death helped them last another half century longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
keep them
relevant. And because any publicity is good publicity.
Totally,
because it's all bad. It's all bad. But we're still talking about them.
Well, and they controlled it. I mean, this whole thing with Harry and Meghan. Their choice to leave is because of the way that Windsor Castle was handling their life. They had enough. Or did they? Who knows? It's in their. I don't know. It's a very interesting topic that this royal family and its history, all the way back to Elizabeth I. It's like the power is crazy, and it's affected the entire world for centuries.
And
we're still talking about it. I mean, Chinatsky's got some good comments. Chinatsky should start a YouTube channel about the royal family. Photogenic white girl, also the only pretty woman in the royal family. I will not argue with that comment.
I mean, there's no the Disney princess. It's there's something about the princess, especially in the 80s, that was still much relevant, much beloved and revered at that time.
Yeah. And Chinatsky also says, if you want a good propaganda film, see The Queen, which humanizes the Queen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we gotta wrap things up here.
Yeah, we will be back.
Just a sec. I'll take care of it, Alan. So we got to wrap things up here. Thank you for everyone who participated in the live stream. Thank you to everyone from Film Threat here, Sabina, Rob, Alan. Support us and buy something at the Film Threat shop, shop.filmthreat.com. You can also send in super chats when we're doing our live streams. We're going to be doing these all through Sundance and Slamdance. We're going to be talking about movies and topics related to the world of independent film. We'll be discussing a lot of stuff. So check in with us for these live streams. Also, some of these videos will be broken out into their own little independent videos. If you like what you saw, please share, like, and subscribe. You can contact us, any of us. Go to filmthreat.com/contact. You can actually talk to the crew if you can't talk to us here. And thank you for everyone who participated in the chat. We really appreciate it. And any final words from anyone else here?
Next week we're doing Slamdance, and so I think we're gonna have a very different conversation next week.
It'll be great. All right. Take care, everybody. Later.